specifically dedicated to youths. We would like to move ahead and do things in such a way that we would like to see youths spend their time and organize their activities. So we will be moving strictly with time, and I will be laying down the ground rules for each and every one of us as we go ahead. So first of all, I would like to give a very short introduction about the Lamka Young Leaders Forum. The Lamka Young Leaders Forum is a platform for youths where we invite visionary young leaders to speak and express their ideas. This platform is open for everyone, and we organize discussions such as this in a monthly basis or sometimes even in a weekly basis. So thank you so much. And I would like to delve into the concept a little bit of what we are trying to discuss today. So as we all know that the assembly polls in Manipur is coming up very shortly, we can see that young people are forming a very large population in India. And India is expected to be one of the youngest country very soon. So as young people, what do we expect from our elected representatives, and what can we demand from them? That is the main question that we would like to discuss today. And as per the National Youth Policy, youths constitute more than 1/4 of the population in India today. So it is assumed that the need for building and nurturing an environment for framing policies and programs and projects for the growth and development of young people is undeniable. So in view of the upcoming state assembly elections, the Young Lamka Leaders Forum would like to awaken the public and leaders on the importance of incorporating the role and voices of youths in policy process, culture, and ideas. We would also like to put forward to the upcoming representatives that securing our society's future requires securing young people's future and providing the necessary platform to bring societal transformation. It is high time that institutions and our representatives in Lamka must attend to the needs of young people. And at the same time, it is also the right and the duty of young people to speak up to our leaders and representatives for their legitimate rights and entitlements. So our aim today is to sensitize every individual and youth in Lamka that the youth must have a say in shaping our future and be a part of the process of our own development. So our discussion today will be divided into 2 sessions. The first session will be taken up by our keynote speaker, who is Hezang Misao, the director of Inside Northeast organization, which is a very fast growing organization in Manipur. He is also a recipient of the President's Appreciation Award and National Sadguru National Award. He has been working with children, youth, and women, and has been running a flagship program called Gun to Pen. His topic will be focused on youth in India, overview and comments on the National Youth Policy. Our second session will be a panel discussion where some of the brightest and most promising youths from our community and our district will be speaking on different topics. So I would like to introduce them one by one. Our first panelist is Denis Lalian. Denis is an indigenous youth and rights defender from Northeast India, currently working with the Catholic Relief Services as a project officer for India. He founded the Bridge School Project, a crowd-funded educational project for vulnerable children, and is also a young peace builder cohort for 2022 for South Asia and Southeast Asia under the United Nations. He will be talking on the topic of enforcing free and compulsory education with reference to the Sustainable Development Goals. And our second panelist is Golan Swanzamong Naulak, but unfortunately due to some engagements, he won't be able to join us today. And our third panelist is Gracie Lamkoling. She is a research scholar in Manipur University, Center for Study of Social Exclusion and Inclusive Policy. She will be focusing on skill development today. And next we have Dr. Rolu Apuya. He teaches sociology at the Department of Humanities and Social Sciences at Indian Institute of Technology, Roorkee. He has worked and writes. He has worked and written on post-colonial Mizo politics and examines questions pertaining to ethnicity, nationalism, and violence. He also holds a research affiliate position with the Lakshmi Mittal and Family South Asia Institute, Harvard University. Next, we have Henry Vumzo. Henry Vumzo has done his master's in philosophy from University of Hyderabad and is currently pursuing PhD philosophy in IIT Mumbai. He and Dr. Rolu Apuya will be talking on the topic of political ideas and culture, imagining our political future. Next, we have Joshua Khaute. He is a PhD candidate in the Department of Political Science, University of Hyderabad. His research work is on India and China's maritime geostrategy in the Western Indian Ocean. Therefore, his academic interest pertains mainly to international relations, geopolitics, geostrategy, multilateral cooperation, Indian Ocean, etc. He is a recipient of Erasmus Mundus scholarship during his master's at Uppsala University in Sweden. He will be talking on the topic of development long-term goal with emphasis on the importance of research. Next, we have Mung Ne Sial. He is a research scholar, PhD, Department of Law, Northeastern Hill University, Shillong. He will be delving into the topic of law and governance. Our next panelist is Ramthar Moy. She is also a lawyer and was supposed to be talking on the topic of law and governance, but then due to work-related problems, she will not be able to join us today. And next we have Ronika Vungwan Kim. She is a lecturer in the Department of Sociology at Rayban College. And next we have Ms. Thim Nezo. She is currently a doctoral candidate at Jamshedji Tata School of Disaster Studies, Tata Institute of Social Sciences, TISS Mumbai. Her research pertains to the role of disaster in the consolidation of tribal identity, in addition to her field of expertise in her area of interest, includes studies of gender equality within the tribal society. She and Ronika will be focusing on the topic of social and human development. And today, so that our sessions can go smoothly, we would like to set some ground rules. The first one is that the keynote speaker will be given 15 minutes to speak. The panelists will all be given 8 minutes each to speak. And questions and comments can be taken at the end of the discussion. So individuals and participants who would like to raise a question or give a comment will have to drop in a message to one of the hosts or raise a hand. And in between the discussion, we would like to keep all the participants muted. I would like to remind the host once again to do this. And then fourthly, and most importantly, since under the Election Code of Conduct, we are entering, or we are already in the silent period, we would like to remind each participant, panelist, and keynote speakers not to mention any political party or candidate during this discussion. So with this, I would like to welcome Sir Hezang Misao to take up his time and speak on his ideas and thoughts on the National Youth Policy with special reference to Northeastern India. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Benjamin, for the opportunity. And I also would extend my heartfelt thanks to the organizer. I would not limit myself to Lamka, even though the platform is Lamka Young Leaders. I mi pawa say thay tu hi thầu bên dòng lệ Lamka lang ki lâu gì chân bảo chôm chôm tu tâm cả tâm hết toàn hi dòng lệ panelists also say, members also say, Kazana kan pitranin the context setting is something which I was given. So I would prefer to speak in English. I hope you all don't mind. So as Benjamin also had already mentioned, India is going to be one of the largest, youngest nation in terms of the youth population. The growth story of India since the turn of the millennium has been quite impressive, and being the sixth largest economy in the world, India is seen in many ways as an emerging superpower in the world. The youth demography, as of now, it is given as 33% of the total population, which the National Youth Policy define youth as those people in the age group of 15 to 29. This youth only adds a greater hope for the dividend that we may reap as a nation. Just as there are two sides of uh, every coin, two sides to every coin, um, this growth story too has another side. India ranks 130 out of 189 on the Human Development Index. In 2013 to 16, India's richest held 370 times the wealth held by the poorest. The top 1% of India's population hold close to half of the country's total wealth. Uh, Now, different communities have taken to the streets demanding um, job reservations, and while decades of deprivation, especially of the marginalized community, fuels the existing social conflicts. And coming to Manipur, I would uh, I would say this also added to the breathing cauldron uh, issue of identity-based discrimination, especially among the so-called Kuki or Zo community, uh, creates deep fissure, most importantly among the young people. Uh, one of the irony, one of the sad thing is like youth has been seen as a problem that needs to be solved. But I would disagree to this perspective of seeing youth as a problem that needs to be solved. Rather than that, I would also propagate and work on towards seeing youth not as a problem creator, but uh, they should be seen as an asset who needs our guidance, who needs our trainings, who needs our support. So India seeing the future of the nation uh, that lies in our young people builds on the National Youth Policy, which was drafted in 2014. So the National Youth Policy has a set of objectives, which I would like to highlight today. Um, uh, One of the among the objectives, the first one is to create a productive workforce that can make a sustainable contribution to India's economic development. So the productive workforce. So youth are seen as one of the productive workforce that can contribute to certain degree to the national economic development. And the other one is to develop a strong and healthy generation equipped to take on future challenges. And then comes to instill social values and promote community services to build national ownership and to facilitate participation and civic engagement at all levels of governance, and to support young at risk and create equitable opportunity for all disadvantaged and marginalized youth. And the last one is to elevate the youth belonging to weaker section of the society. One must remember that social inclusion and social justice is one of the most important goal of the national youth policy. So uh, government seeing um, the youth as one of the dividend or one of the workforce that can contribute to the national economic development, has implemented several policies aimed at universalizing access, and then creating equity and improving quality education. Schemes are also, I mean, taken up. There are also lots of schemes which are also implemented that aims at promoting inclusive education, expanding the capacity of technical and higher education, at the same time enhancing literacy and basic education, building a cadre of trained youth. However, coming down to our context, let's look at our context. Um, we are part of India, and the, the national youth policy are also uh, equally drafted for every youth who are the citizens of India. But unfortunately, if we look at our situation, um, we have a parallel government. You know, when I'm saying parallel government, we have non-state actors who are also more of acting as more of a government. And in that kind of context, how many of us really benefit the policy which are drafted for the growth and development of the youth? Look at the policies and also look at the implementation level of the policies and all the schemes which are meant for our uh, for the development of our young people. Um, Now, every every young people, uh, which I would say, when Amartya Sen, one of the Nobel laureate, uh, I was very much inspired by his words when he said, "There cannot be true development when there cannot be freedom from fear." Now we are, if you look at our context, we are always living in a state of fear, and that state of fear is something which is really impeding the growth from every angle. Look at the education, because education is one of the most important uh, sector through which our youth need to build themselves up. Look at the skill development sectors. Any skill development program which is really running in our states that really builds the future of young people. Look at the governance. First, first let's look at the education. Let's look at the skills development part and also look at the governance. How many of our young people are actively involved in governance? I have, if I'm not mistaken, it is almost coming to zero. So, uh, seeing all this situation that we are in, I would also request every citizens, every youth, especially among the community from who had the same ancestor, in spite of identity-based discrimination that we have now. Because it is high time we come out of our fear, start asserting our rights, and start claiming our entitlements, and then live a life with dignity, free from violence and free from fear. So unless we we also, as it was also mentioned rightly, assembly election is coming up. So but somehow it is I would say it is too late already to work on the manifestos, but the young people can form a very strong force as a pressure groups through which the growth and developments can be ensured from the policies of the government. So I would like to end my keynote address by saying that we are living in a very tiny land with a high degree of asymmetry of power. The asymmetry of power ranging from the land occupation to the legislative assembly. We are living in a legislative assembly where 40% we are out of 60 we have only 20, and out of 20 we have only 10. So since we are living in such context, it is high time young people get a quality education, work for their future, and ensure that their growth and development is attain to that optimum level. Thank you so much.
Hello, friends. Without wasting much time, I would like to go ahead with our panelists. We've been waiting for them to hear from them. Paule kahon hel jak dinga ngai khet tu tele tom tomate thei chang thei zong na dina why bana panelist te kya lenget tu khatai le important points non sun teu kha sapa on hon genu le a hoi tham thama why bana power new khat sik hon hel thei jak lew chin leng I hoi ma dinga hi chi kahon ge na hi dinga I lun mai na hezang sar hezang tunga kipa thui ge na. We are very happy for the keynote address that you have laid out so many important issues that the youth have to take forward in case in terms of building a pressure group for a smooth and functioning governance and others many points that you have mentioned. Thank you, Hazan. We would like to go to next. I'd like to call upon the panelists. Tuina imabana panelists lunglut wai mama ichidinga thupi lunglut wai tom tampi gen kom ding tampe mai man na ilut sukpa dinga ama sapeni na Dr. Rorua Pui in ama ngai tu ana ichidiama ama ana hisab political ideas and culture ichidiama ai kele politics mabana politics ting bangchi bang ngai tu hi hiam political leadership ichite huchi bangchi bangina ngai tu ana ichidiama ideas ingai tu ana te bangchi bangina political thinking bangchi bangin paile politics saidan honlema mabana tu lai te ding hiam ai kele next generation adinga politics hon pai dik the ding hiam chi aman hon genle chi ichal masakhi lan minute gyat aman ama ipeding. We would like to call upon Dr. Ruapuya to speak on political ideas, culture, and imagining our political future. The dice is yours.
Good evening, everyone. I hope I'm audible. So it's such a privilege to be a part of this very interesting and important conversation, which is organized by the Lamka Young Leaders Forum. And I cannot stress enough my gratitude to be a part of this conversation. And I would like to thank the organizer for creating this platform for the youth of the town or Cherisanpur at large. So it was very enlightening to hear from our keynote speaker, Puhezang Wisau, and I wish he was given more time, because it's not every day that you get a chance to hear from a very experienced speaker, which with such a firm commitment to the people. So, but anyway, I hope that this is the beginning for many more conversations that we will be having in the future. So I also thank our coordinator, Gominlal, for coordinating and bringing us together in one. Actually, I'm more of someone who wanted to be the listener, but given that I have to speak tonight, and that too on a topic which is quite at the moment at least contentious, because this is the season of election. So, and many a times you don't want to come out publicly and share your ideas and opinions. Anyway, at the very outset, I have nothing much to offer tonight, but what I intend to do is that I will try to throw up some questions that I think are important, or maybe we can collectively think about, not only tonight, not only for tonight, but also in the near future or in the coming future. So like our coordinator said, I'm given this topic, political ideas or political culture or political institutions. So when I was given this task, one of the first things that came to my mind was this question of politics not in terms of power, or politics not in terms of elections or victory, but politics in terms of how we think, or what is the kind of society that we envision for the future, for the next 10, 20, 30 years. So I think the question that that I wanted to put tonight, into this platform is that what is the kind of society that we imagine for ourselves and our future generations? So I think that way, we don't want to confine ourselves to this very limited notion of politics as grabbing power, or politics as mere electoral battle, but politics as a question of survival, politics as a question of our very existence. But having said that, I don't want to advocate any form of political idea or discuss political theory, as I think I will not do justice to the vast area of political theory. Also because I don't want to reduce, the complexities of political thought. But then, and I know that, I'm not, someone who has, the capacity to speak on political theory, because I'm not a political scientist. I'm not trained in any discipline. I studied BA in social work, and then I went to study MA in development studies, and then my PhD was in social science. So I am neither there, I am neither here. So I'm everywhere. So, but then now, since my job profile is I'm assistant professor of sociology, so I pretend to be a sociologist from the past 2 years. But anyway, so it has its own advantage. It has its own disadvantage. But I think for the larger question, it does not necessarily mean that one has to be acquainted with political theory or ideas of ideas that influence political institutions. But like I said, I think the question for us, particularly for the young and for the youth, to ask ourselves is, what is the kind of society that we imagine, for the next 10 to 20, 10, 20, 30 years, or what is the kind of society that we imagine for ourselves and our future generations? So my point of departure is looking at political ideas in formerly colonized societies. We know that, India as a country has been, a former colony of the British. So I think it is a very good starting point. And particularly for everyone living in Northeast India, we know that, the colonial encounter is very important part of a historical event that we cannot, talk about our history. We cannot talk about our past without talking about colonialism or colonial rule. So one of the questions that every colonized people or colonized society or societies or countries which are now referred to as third world or developing world face was the question of freedom. So this idea of freedom inspired anti-colonial movements. It inspired many decolonial struggles. It also inspired many political efforts in the form of decentralization. And it also continued to inspire, post-colonial politics. And in all this, what we see is that, we see how diverse ideas, interact and shape political imagination. And for this, I wanted to take, the example of three key thinkers of modern India, or the three most prominent leaders and ideologies of Indian freedom movement. One is Mahatma Gandhi, second, Nehru, and third, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. So before going into, I'm not trying to give a, detail of each of these, key thinkers, but what I intend to do is that the differences that was, prevailing among these three very important Indian national thinkers as well as leaders. So before going to the difference, there is one thing which was, common among all of them, which was the independence of India, or in short, freedom. So all of them, three of them, they are committed to the development and future of the country, particularly in terms of what free India should be and what free India should look like. So it was also in this very, similar objective that we see that, there is something which is that we see, a stark difference in terms of, what kind of India they envision. So, for example, we have Mahatma Gandhi, and he is someone, who does. He is someone, I think, even people in all fields, in all walks of life, know a little bit about Gandhi. So there is not anyone, in India who does not know about the life and work of Gandhi. But the difference between Gandhi, Ambedkar, and Nehru is very, very stark in terms of, their thinking about Indian society. So, for example, Gandhi celebrated the idea of village in India, or the idea of village life. He wrote and spoke about a great deal on various aspects of village life in India. And for Gandhi,
the last 2 minutes. I'm sorry to remind the time.
Okay.
I have the time. Yes, last 2 minutes.
Okay. Okay. I haven't started, but it's already the last 2 minutes. So anyway, Gandhi celebrated the idea of village. Nehru was, someone who does not want to celebrate the idea of village, because he thinks that, village represents, backwardness, primitiveness. And for Ambedkar, what we see in the life and work of Ambedkar is that, he was, against, any celebration or any, this romantic presentation of India, through village. So basically, my intention is that, these three key intellectual, or these three, thinkers of modern India comes from, different school of thought, or, have different standpoint when it comes to what they envision about India. So we can talk more about it, in terms of how communist, socialist, gender, feminism, are all foundational to the making of India. So in Churchandpur context, I'm just cutting short what I have to say. In Churchandpur context, we have so many political institutions, we have so many political societies, and I'm sure that, we are all aware about it. One does not need to give, any kind of, further detail. We have so many civil society organizations, student groups, women groups, so on and so forth. So what I think, is important, and what I think is pertinent for us in the context of Churchandpur is that we need to retain diversity and reclaim the pluri-social culture and political space we inhabit. I think it is important that we need to affirm and acknowledge the diversity of ideas in politics and the possibility of how our existence is integral or intrinsic part of it. So the idea that two or more ideas can survive and exist, the possibility of confluence and mixture like a salad bowl or an ironba, because any form of purity of ideas and thoughts or imposing of institution is antithetical in a reason like Jochanto. So I think, in a nutshell, what I intend to say is that, it is okay to have this, this multitude of ideas. It is okay to have, multitude of political institutions. And I think, for a youth, of today, I think we need to reclaim this, this diversity. I'll stop here and thank you so much.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Pui, for your valuable points. And also, I would like to remind the panelists, after each and every one of the panelists have taken their time, we'll be opening a time to finish important points which are missing in a time given that you have allotted. Next, Henry Vumzo. In a political ideas, the political imagination to kisay ma hongen le si ingena amana hunon la pa le mo.
Yes, hello, good afternoon everyone. Good afternoon, good evening. Chibai nitha pa la bonun. Hun song timintin, and I am not sure I'll do justice to the topic given, but anyway, it was it is an interesting one. Upuya has set the tone already just before cutting off all the platitudes that I'd say. Yes, first of all, yeah, maybe, okay, let me just, first of all, yes, thank you so much for inviting me to this talk, Lamka Young Leaders Forum, and to all my panelists who are here too as well, so that we'll have a fruitful discussion. Kind of nervous because I have never expected it to be this way in the first place. So please forgive me if I kind of mutter in the process. I think I have also made a lot of mistake already. So at the outset, I also want to express that at the risk of sounding very blunt, I may come off as sometimes blunt in the first place. And if I get a beating for that, please understand, yes. Please bear with me. And a pautole mix zeu tsukauta athing in hilele haksathima hoipen again tidan hem kabu in line kele. So Lamka context a direct kalut utop kele masapin pin so a political setting, political stage ka new hat atsin kung naila win ka he Lamka politics ka says Manipura statehood imuka 1971 72 patita. Tuting he assembly election ka 50 years will democratic elections, say 1947 apat gen la was statehood imunong patata. Ilay political setting heads in thak anga in a line kahe at this point for all of us, including our political candidates and voters. I'll be exactly referring to the local as well as the national and the global at some point in time. Political stage I don't think we're in the same political stage as all the citizens in India at this point. Manipura bangle idin munha miti tele tidang katin phaizang te to akibang ke pokasa. So political stage at this point, I think for all of us, our most important objective would be to always understand our position when it comes to facing Paisang Kumpino Witipen mo. Our politics is a fight against injustice that has been always committed to us for over all the years. Some of us may not agree, some of us may agree, but in this sense, our position has to be clear. Because when we go into the assembly, we're not just going in the assembly to make friends or to make bets with Paisang Kumpino, but we are there to wrestle and to akibun pi ngai na kidin pi te ngai na kidin pi kha nahi ke ngai da na kha. So political stage I think Lamka voters at this point and Lamka citizens or Chochampo citizens or AMI citizens in general are all very so disoriented. Politics ha a basic political orientation le kitchiang ko ngai lo he say left wing right wing politics per se bang ke thiam nai lo. So political institutions in India bang ki he thiam dem questionable mama na at this point, because say I'm bringing this in to understand that I think we take a lot of these political mechanisms, political institutions that we have for granted. For instance, public hospital, the government school, the government institution, but if we look at it, it's not everybody, we may have it, but not everybody around the world have it or has it. So a question we have to understand all these principles of left-wing, right-wing politics and all. Left-wing mostly their cornermost idea is equality. Right-wing economically, their cornermost idea is freedom. So freedom from all so individual liberty to libertarian development. So we usually associate left-wing with all these socialist, socialist communist principles, and right-wing with all these capitalist principles. But at the end of the day, it boils down to the principles, I think. And how come we have all these government schools, although we don't care very much government hospitals, government institutions, and all that is because we have all these socialist principles that are enshrined in the constitution. So that is there. So, and now looking at the current government, looking at the trend, for instance, in the past 5 years, the central government is very much into privatization, which means we're very much moving forward to liberalization, which means at some point, hypothetically, we could also forego all these public institutions. India private university so Lamka vela or Lamka lesi vela public institution in India for that we have to understand the basic political orientation. Of course, other than left wing, right wing, there's authoritarian and libertarian all that, but I won't get into that anymore, just so that the political. But today, what I really want to speak on is the idea that the mainstream politics that we have among us, that is developmental politics. So I was looking around all these manifestos of candidates and in all of AMI dominated areas. Am I audible so far? Hello?
Yes, you are audible.
Yeah. So if we look at all our AMI candidates, their policies, their manifestos we have, I think it is saturated. And the common theme basically is development and change. So
Henry, I am sorry to remind that you have 1.5 minutes.
Sure. Yeah. Yep. So development and change, but development at the cost of what? And development at the price of what? Question mama 71 about ADC hovel bang election na lagi ni epekta. Kini zone nga kanti kaum tawin but 6 schedule power ni lo zika kan 80 ka boycott ila bolo so election ni lo charger but 95 election umintin but tribal issue as in the sense of 6 schedule ka emitin representative tin ka raise tamo mong lo intin azik so bang zikem tele developmental politics azik hi cabinet minister hidi kitsu as also le cabinet minister hilen development work tam piki hoi thading in zo bhat chule kilal den ti ngai tuna khaw mai tim be hapoi zi khale ki chu to pek zi ko khan developmental politics in tribal issue side line pakita so come to soon 2015 tribals issue omki the tribals issue le same thing developmental politics zo zi kin mithilu ngi vui do ko and then a movement atikita see 2019-20 chifu issue ni kito chifu issue le developmental politics zi ma I thawa. So in that sense, is developmental politics something that is really important for us at this stage? So what I want at this point that we have to reflect on rather is that development, let us look at in the structural sense more. Let us first have as a representative in if a struggle itangko PDP structural politics is in a structure in the sense of we first need a well-defined, well-formed political system, and that we can call it our own. It may be a state, a TC or UT, or it can just be a billion assembly that safeguard all our interests. So representative and then what I want, as in what I as a young person from Lamka would want and would like to create an awareness, raise an awareness at this point, is also regarding identifying political issues. No, political issues, how we just let it go at some points very easily. Nobody to blame here, including me, all of us. Say we all talked about Hengleb and its road issue. So at some point, Hengleb becomes synonymous with it, bad roads. But if you take a step back and look at it, Hengleb, I think the largest political issue to people in Hengleb patulay alampi hoilaw it's rather that MLA 2.5 years after resign, no 2.5 years by election had that is injustice of the worst kind. No, we should raise questions like that, because it is constitutionally enshrined that if an MLA has resigned and then after 6 months of acceptance of its resignation, by election on dating. So what is this injustice? This injustice is rather that all these peoples who are living in Hengleb and as Chochan Purakozo said, they have not been represented in the assembly for over 2.5 years. And how can we let that go as young people or as people from that place more?
Okay,
so,
Henry, if you...
Thank you very much. I'll conclude with that. Yeah, I'm so sorry.
Okay. Thank you very much for putting out your points. I would like to remind the panelists, our main question, our main intent, or the basic question is what we want as a youth, what we demand from our elected representatives. So if you can frame your point in that direction, it will be much more easier for us to take it into point, taking down the notes in that direction. Okay, thank you very much, Henry, for your time and sticking with the time. Now, next, I would like to request Denis to speak on behalf of the youth, not on behalf of the youth, but what youth of the Southern Chorochanpu want from our elected or to be elected representatives in matters pertaining to education. So I would like to request Denis to speak on importance of education as
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so as if we have all mentioned that we need to talk about what are the aspirations of young people especially for South of Manipur, and the topic that I'm given is to talk a little bit more on education, but I'll also be talking about issues around the sustainable development goals. So what, we are just 2 days away from the election. Polling day is on Monday, and it's very crucial that young people's voices are accounted, and that's why it is the whole reason why we are all sitting here tonight trying to deliberate on some important key points and agendas what young people of South Manipur should actually raise. So when we talk about elections and all, I really don't want us to be a 5 years, a periodical 5 years like the universal periodic review, like how the UN would do it. To assess on the situation, but it should be, very frequent for young people to talk about this. And one of the key understanding for young people is that we are the voices which are, always at a distant future. But I would like to tell young people through this platform that the voices is now and the change should be now. We should not wait for the future. And that is what basically, which we should all understand, because on Monday, your voices, your voice, what you're going to the ballot counts on, the accountability with which I'll be later speaking about, the growth story that we are, aspiring for. So as you know, like Sisipur, particularly not just Sisipur, but moreover, the story of Manipur itself is that in terms of education, we are having a lot of problems. Like we have absentee teachers. In terms of infrastructure, we are lagging behind. In terms of any other key, important matters. But we also have at the same time rhetoric to that. We have the right to education. But why are people still spending a lot on education in a place like Churchandpur? That is something which I'm so concerned about. Why are village kids still struggling, are still, not given a dream that they can aspire? Why are, young people from this town still need to go to Delhi or outside the country or, for quality education when quality education can be delivered? Whose fault is it? This is something I would really want to ask to each one of us who are listening, tonight. So whose accountability, whose responsibility? This is something that we must question, we must try to answer. And that is why one of the key development points, as when we talk about the sustainable development goals, is that it works on the 5 P's. And out of these 5 P, we have the people, the planet, prosperity, peace and partnership. And out of that, I would really want to stress on partnership, how we can achieve certain things. All we do is that for this past whole years is, do the blame game, blame your politicians, blame the corruption. But what about also the public on our moral responsibility? One key issue problem is that during elections, you take money, so someone needs to recover it. So these are key aspects also which we need to look into it. So we become cheaper than dogs, we become cheaper than chickens. And how do we answer this? So where is our moral responsibility in that? So we might want quality education, we might want affordable, housing, we might want to reduce inequalities, we might want to achieve so many things, but it's not possible when the continuing trend continues. This is so toxic relationship that we have. So I think this election, at least from this election, we can start talking about it and make men, through partnership, through your elected politicians and through, the voices, especially youth. This is the power that is with us. And let's not talk as something it is very theoretical or it's very possible in the ground. So why quality education? Because we have lots of absentee teachers. We have teachers spending more in their house than at schools. We have teachers who are staying comfortably in their house than, like going to the field at what we call the Tingklang. So these are issues like where is the corruption? Is it the fault of the politician alone and this corruption, and are the people not corrupted? So we as a Christian, as a district which has a maximum Christianity, there is something we should also question about that. And it is very hard, it is very heart-wrenching when lots of people who are very, very, what we call it, Taraumi becomes, absentee teachers. So I think we need to start somewhere. And this negotiation needs to begin with partnership. That is why I really want to first stress on the sustainable goal development number 17, because it talks on peace, on partnership and the importance of partnership in achieving like developmental politics, which either Henry or, my former panelists were talking about. And also sustainable goal number 16 also talks about like peace and justice institutions. So I'm not just seeing institution as peaceful, but we need to look at our institutions. Are our institutions accountable? Are our complaints or response mechanism there in place? So these are stuffs that we need to ask our politician, and we must elect someone, or we must push for someone who are able to deliver this. What we are looking at is the last night, what happened in the election. Are you getting money? All these things are something that we are more asking, like not about what their manifesto. Who has studied manifesto? I'm not sure. Like Henry was talking about, he studied the manifesto, but many of the people here don't get to see the manifesto. And that is really, really, something which we must ask ourselves. And one very important thing is that we must also, as young people, when we talk education quality, be it or any other development that we are seeking for it, are we having leaders which prioritize performance with a purpose? Do we have leaders who are willing to perform and who are very purposeful in that? So this achievability is something that depends on our voice. Our ballot matters for that. And for this, it is accepting the challenge and responsibility, not just for a politician, but also for people who are all sitting here even tonight. And that's why, like, let's stop complaining. Let's start working. That is something I all want us to get into the gears of action, because we are not getting into the gears of action, but we are getting into the gears of just sitting laid back and just complaining. What we are all good is complaining. Let's talk about hard truths. We are not talking about, let's come back to reality. Reality, the moment you step out of your house, you have your dusty road, you have your nala that is blocked, you are all fed up with it, we are all frustrated. But when the time comes, what was your decision? What was the choice that you were making? So this is something that I would really, really want us to throw ourselves into this calling. In which boat are we throwing ourselves into? So until unless I talk about quality education or any other development goals that I would really aspire for this town, but if we don't start talking from either from a civic responsibility or moral responsibility and those aspects, we are not going to achieve what we are aspiring for. It's always going to be an aspiration, but not achievable goals that we are having. Manifesto continues to be a manifesto just in paper without any action, because we are not holding our politicians or any of our leaders accountable. Because at the end of the day, so many cards.
Denis, you may wrap up your concluding point.
Yes. So that is why I really want us to, think, focus on the job that we have as young people, and let's also set targets. And until unless we set targets for our politicians and our leaders, we are not going to be nowhere, and it's just going to be a talk shop. So I don't want even tonight to be a talk shop. So let's take action. That's all what I appeal. And thank you so much once again. Whatever I could say. So once again, let's take responsibility. That's what I would like to say.
Okay. Thank you very much, Denis, for sticking with your time and really stretching out a very, very good point. We would like to move to the next panelists, Mung and Moy, on their themes, law and governance. Igama danle dun omnapia danle dun mumal lo taka. I sep di bol di bangma sep chatom lo waika danle dun omlo khatakingai now madiam. Twilight ten banga yai tung tangai ngai dan. I representative te akipana I demand te di. Yai hon sem suaun hitibang hon bolun. Dan le dun tung tang to kisaya gen di ini te amau I hon gen kya lan ama sapen na mung nei sial na ahun hon lale chini chiala hi
akizathe mamo ke akha
kizathe
law and governance chi gen ding hi wa wai thudang tam gen ton lo na ya lu chup pa le law and governance chi gen chang akha dan le kivai hom dan chinan de na ako ka ikil dan le dun ichi hiam khar ahia ya government akha government hoi inei theina ding wa kha dan hoi ki poimo masa mo dan hoi inei theina ding akha representative ichi te ya to context again leng MLA dite representative hoi inei masa ga nga ya wai inei theina ding akha ei twilight na vote kinei changa vote le change the changa kha parliament bangin leng 1988 61st amendment voting rights kha kumsom ni le khada kepan kumsom le da hang ke suksaka ya kha twilight le politics atel theina nga kha voting rights kipia hi achia ya amendment ma 1988 why piak pena kha ei loin le tena lomte gen dan dawa transparency accountability chi honge de ya why bana employment chi bangle de ya employment bana quality education chi bangle ki de ya te nei the na ding akha dan le dun kha ki thiwa poimo ma dan le dun ni theina nga kha e dena lompa gin dan ma kha a government te work bang ngo le hi theilo e ke le amau mo le hi the e mo le hi the changa wai jaga kha e mo le ka chi ut kya ken cho en kha accountability om te kha izat siam lo zia ko le nga hi government in le a hi ta ke nong jang le accountability ngai lo ding hi e loi pai da na kha ni china gen le nga e banga milim bol hanga milimi bol khip changa va bemok chiran de kha MLA ding I representative the sek hanga I sek changa va be ek mok why chiran do paida ngom changa kha e ya dia kha phatwam thei di kesem na kesem thei lo mo ma sape ne ya why lo ai thei poimo ma ding kha RTI chi bangle ma ai kele ai lokai yukta 2014 ana ki bol ana ki pass mo Manipura 2019 hiam karena aki sangpana hey te bang jang siam lenga government na local area development fund ke le ADC fund ke la twam to ami chi te bang le ho le kha accountability ngom thiding ya ye local yukta Manipur te first case bang public ang ki ko hia pen bang kha ADC tameng longa afan chuk thel thang tu to ke sai hi ei khong bang leng athu to am tom om thei changa kha ei loin leng kha government te na government ni chi changa elected body te ma why elected body ten kha banga sem ke wa chi bang atak taka vaki mueve asum za to ke tuak lo chi le why taka kha assessment bola transparency bang om thea why te bang en lenga i government te ma le accountability ke pe thei ding ya why te bang e ma le izat patwa nga ya why jang thei ding na twilight te bang e ke le why zat ngai lo di khopin kha twilight ten kha i dei pen kha he hoi di e twilight te to ki tuak e ke le he i di sakchi pen kha i rights kha iwa exercise i rights i exercise pen kha vote ma if exercise i dei ke le la nota va mi di la len chen why exercise len kha e phatom di e dei pen hon tel thei ding ya why te ba na kha education dan le dun lama education lamina lu lenga scholarship bang st scholarship bang en lenga 2.5 lakh per annum ceiling ke ko ejum and general category reservation ani thing na economically weaker section china te kha why kha 8 lakh hiam kha ya why economically weaker hi thina wa kha 8 lakh hi thele isin tang media dia le 2 lakh pe ni ko pen kha kum nga kum som paisa ina zat ge pen 2.5 lakh pen kha he kun hi talo hiam why pen bang elected body te bang ina hongen kai thelo e dia patom lo ding hiam chi bang oma why te bana kha government bang in leng youth participation dek tak hele what can the government do maybe the president or the next whatever it is mala government in youth participation dek tak hele 1988 dana manipur banga gen bol sima Manipur banga 2017 election kha to 2022 kha youth kha register kha 60,000 lakh khong ke register to ba na hi ahia why bang i on changa kha youth tena wait nei ma ahia why banga kha youth participation dek tak hele university khong bang mun tom toma state tom me changa kha postal ballot system hai service voter ti khong tom te khong vote ahia chak thei banga youth tia ding leng university tom state tom tia ding leng atomin bol thei na om helan why pe lam pi pen kha government at the center or at the state ma pai na kwat bi le pai bang youth tia dia patom thei pen na ka ging ta why te bana kha law and governance che changa kha election chang banga sum kipia ekele suma kele ekele communal taka thili te kha ahoi ke chi athi lo kwa mayom ke ai te pen kha omlo thei dia kha campaign om thei pen te bang youth te haswan zo hen lan youth te na no he thulam te hi ngai lo na he lama hi chiran de na hi diwa chan do hang kai thei di mi kha akeliber nei de bang youth te bang inan hoi isak te bang le om le hoi te bang le youth suma le ki to son thei na ekele youth te bang youth participation ayut chuma te bang participate sak theile ekele youth te ma le ke pe het theile chu eya dia patwam de hi dia why dan ke ngai twan dan na mom why bana employment issue la ma gen to non lenga employment exchange bangoma chu chanpura employment exchange sa khai ke register ka mong ngom changa employment exchange sa kha va pai non ngai documents tom submit ngai mo ei te khong bang leng employment exchange sa ke register ngar le ka mong ngom changa ko hiam khada employment exchange sa va pai le documents tom submit ngai lo dia wa cha easy taka hi swak thei mai registration number jang ai chinan de khong banga kha lampi elected body te khong yam ekele connect on ball sak thei connection what I mean is banga elected member to you take kikal ha agep saw ke hen lan ki close zole che kadai dan hi why te bana kha you tena tu election ai thi ding wa poi mo mama e lamba nga leng ai kel mun tom toma ki za vote ki guk sak chi bangoma why hun chang banga i thei da poi mo ka sak chu tender vote chi om thea why te bang if vote mean na guk sak le tender vote kha anget thea presiding officer kyanga why a presiding officer kyanga tender vote even at pen kha and a paper I get why pen kha I het thea e vote ki sin helele ma why te bang le election kha mi ni on a vote ani amu zaun ke nai lot changa kha why te kha decision making a bang the hi chi patwam na why jakina you te participate kha poimo ka sa chi I think kun gen thei de
na hun to nong kitwak chata ki pawai mama bana ding ina moi ina hi tung ta nga omlo jakina abana ipai dinga tunina absentee panelist dia chia mini ngom thela wa hiya heu tu nu moito heu tu pa golan wai jakina abana ngon pai suk dinga na pa Joshua khauti ina yai development tung tang to kisaya development chain again tuai development ina ngai tu dan lo dewa tuai laiten le represented MLA tena bangchi bangin hon ngai tu leu tuai laiten lama kipana phatwam diam chi nana ngai tu na hon gen kle chin kon cherwei Joshua khaute namle.
Okay. Am I audible? Long the theo here?
Hey.
Okay, I'll speak in English. Comfortable. So first of all, good evening to all of you, and thank you to Lamka Town Hall Talk for inviting. And I think as the previous speaker have mentioned that the election is just 2 days around the corner, and it's a very timely discussion. And I think it's most of the topics are also very interesting. And although my PhD research thesis is on international relations, where I'm focusing mainly on the Indian Ocean, and something on India and China, it's nevertheless nice to talk about something which is also somehow very much related in some way somehow. So today my topic is on development, and when we speak of development, the first thing that I want to ask everyone is how we understand development. Do we even really know what is development? Because sometimes our understanding of development seems to be very short-sighted. For instance, most of us may believe that if you drive good cars, you wear good clothes, and you have fancy house, maybe that is development. But if that is the only thing, if that is your definition of development, then the problem is you are not looking at another aspect of development, which is human resource development, your human capital. And I think that is what is lagging at the moment in Lamka town and the state and the region as a whole. That we often see, it appears more like we often see, material wealth and things like that, more than the human progress. And therefore, we have good cars, good houses, but we don't seem to progress much. So, but since time is limited today, I'll focus on two areas of development. One is infrastructural development, and the other is about human resource development or human capital. Now, to come to infrastructural development, as we know already that our infrastructures are quite dilapidated. It is quite old. Like, for instance, our roads. Just last month, I was there in Lamka for some family function. The state highway was surprisingly good this time. But if we look at the interior roads, they are in terrible condition. And not just the roads, if we look at even medical facilities, if we look at even sports facilities, we don't seem to have anything, For instance, medical facilities, I was quite worried because I was hearing some ambulances and the roads were bad. And, this thing called golden hour. And how will this ambulance be able to really make up the time loss due to the bad roads? So, that is one area. And plus, and then when we come about sports facilities, especially for the youth, nowadays we know that sports is also very important. It has always been important. In fact, we as a society, we are gifted in sports, in music. We are a very talented society. But the problem is, if we don't have the infrastructure to nurture all these talents that we have been blessed with, how are we ever going to grow up? How are we going to progress? And one example that I want to mention here, particularly since I stay in Hyderabad, and we know that most of the Indian level badminton players are from Hyderabad. So I started playing this sports recently, and I was shocked to notice that within 5 kilometer radius from my university alone, there are more than 30 badminton courts, high, world-class level. And the charges for renting those courts are very economical, just 400 rupees per hour for 4 people. That's like 100 per person. And the facilities are so good. And no wonder these people, from Telangana and Andhra, they're coming up and being world-class players. So, how are they able to nurture the talents. We have talents, we have everything that we need, but we are not able to nurture ourselves because we don't have infrastructures. And lack of infrastructure is another reason why entrepreneurship cannot really do well. And at the same time, tourism also, we are blessed with very rich natural resources, flora, fauna, you can say. But how are we able to capitalize on this? Now we have some resorts that's coming up, but again, these we need more infrastructure development that so that the progress, human progress can also be capitalized. So now on the other part of what I wanted to speak on human capital is that educational systems and all, we have schools coming up everywhere, but are we actually able to really pass across the message that we want for young people? Are they having the enough facilities like parks and like zoos? That's because sometimes it's our education is more like just rote learning. We need also like practical experiences, which will go a long way. And because of this lack of these opportunities and facilities, what is happening is we are often forced to migrate to different places, and this also leads to what we know very well called the brain drain. So at the same time, we are literate, we're educated, we have big dreams, but we are not able to capitalize on them. So so we need to really focus on not just infrastructure, but also human progress and development. And for this, we need to also, our mindsets needs to also change. Times are changing, we also need to change. And if we really want things to progress and develop in our region, in our place, in our town, I think that we need, it's not just about the political or bureaucratic will, but also the collective public action. That means we need to be, we need to talk more, we need to study more, we need to research more, and we need to be able to stand up and speak up for what we believe, what we desire. Because every time election comes, someone mentioned about the manifesto. They come up with this very awe-inspiring, very nice manifestos, but the question is it even being fulfilled? Do they really know what their manifesto is talking about? So for that, we need to really stand up. We need to really speak up for what we want. We need to demand, we need to question, because it is also our constitutional rights. Because every time you're voting, you're telling that person, whoever is winning the election, that we have faith in you, we repose our trust and our well-being, our future depends on you. But if they are not fulfilling our desires, then we also need to really think about it. So for that, we really need to also have this thought where we need to, we need to be in tandem with one another in certain aspects when it comes to especially infrastructure. And we need to have a long-term plans, not just for one day, 2 day, or something like that. We need to really look for the long-term goals, long-term policies that we have. And I'm sure that if we can actually think and stand up for what we really believe, I hope that we'll get to see a more positive growth and development in our hometowns, in our state. So since like I mentioned before, time is limited, and I want to keep my talk very short within the time limit. So again, thank you very much. And in conclusion, I just want to quote the former US President, John F. Kennedy, who once mentioned that it is not our wealth that builds our road. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Joshua, for sticking with the time and giving us a very succinct, relevant point within such a short span of time. And moving into next speaker, we would like to call Gracie Lamka. on voicing out what the youth want in terms of skill development, as also relevant with Joshua Kaute speak on human resource development. So Gracie, if you are available, the dice is yours. Please come and voice out the voice of the youth in terms of the needs for skill development.
Hello. Nabono vin nila apa bang platform thedi nga yumu ka kipain ni za ka on za thena utna.
Yeah.
If you can hear me. Yeah.
Yes.
Bang platform ide inga yu sei thedi nga yumu hi tipa umin zo tingle bang mun pha hin sim tu hozo si lamkai hozo si chunga ka kipana ka hin sein constituency khen khat achun khang tha ipoi mo tawve hi lawai le khathim hi lawai le assembly hola thu seding poi mo tawve ti ho akiza zingin hi chita bang lamkai ho chu ipoi mo uve ti hi iti phale hin he diu hamitia hi le question tua hitita bang platform in ho tabanga ko na hi question raceable jing phadu le hin hitita bang do na hi lawa hi le thu do ho chu hin don bu theilo khatle ni ho chun ama le ma hi na okay hi hitita bang pan mun hi tu thei ka hi poi aji chu midang ho don bu na ho hi lawa hi le midang ho thu do ho don bu thei ka hi lawa hi le hitita bang panmun hi tu thei ka hi poi ti ho hong ki gel do pha du le chun acham lowa chu lamkai phai nei di wa hi ti chu ke mata asana hi in tu ni la itok su hi lamka adi seda southern churchanpur focus hi ji chun churchanpura constituency them khara intending candidate ho hi lawa hi le candidate adinga ki gung ho izoa henry na sei tabangin them khat study kana bolin Facebook hi lo to lai to Facebook Twitter hi lo wai Instagram ti lowin midang ho manifesto ho ki mo khat point candidate them khat wang chuna hi le serious ta in hi ka manifesto hi hi kadin piding hi tabang khanto na hi lawai le hi tabang ki khel na dei vai le ni hin vote of inti in hin la mi khen khat chu atam zo chu hi tabang hoa pha su mangding sang chun ki sabuin tam ta zong chu na in churchanpura hin chule perzol to 6 assembly constituency hi gup umin tule tu hin khet ki lawa hi le churchanpur pumpia assembly constituency gup ko na hi candidate hi som thum le li hi in izowa speaker dang ho hi lawai le panelist tam ta ho in asei uzong chu imu su ke tho di wa hin la tu ni la ke topic ding hi lawai le ke hung ki sa khol na ding chu hi le skill development lang hin entrepreneurship and skill development lang hin tu chung election a kunin state assembly election manipura dinga asom le ni channa state assembly election a hin hichi ka de thil tamta ki gung tha hen lang hi zong le ke ya dinga ke topic e ki pi chu hi lo wai le ken ka kilen chu hi le skill development lang hi ji chun thil dang tamta zong chu sebe ka gung di po in tu ni la kum som thum zo ting le aga kani e thei dingu hi chita bang hi lawai le hi chita bang thei phung hi tia muchi ivet sa ova hi le hi chu e tu pi ova le kum som thum zo le hon aga ikilo diu hi chu hi ding hi in e ho hi na mo win ipu ipa khangu wa panin financial management mo hi ki he khalo hi in ga vet sa na in ipu ipate in kumhlunga ani eding wala anchang ai lawal changa ne ya hile zu ta sangin ne khom don khom ana bol jiwin hichita bang ho chu hiwin tu ta dia tu khanga se dingin entrepreneurship hi lawa hile thildang tam ta ho hi first generation ngen hi na laiwin churchanpur hi lawa hile ho lamka context a se dingin census data akuna ka hinla do hi in hi 2014-15 financial year sunga chun ADC hin pos zathum le li 304 hi onga hi in hi cha chu application chu hi le sangsagi le zali le som thum le gup 7436 applicants sum hi in hi chu na vet sa chu pi hamatia hi le e ho Churchanpur sunga hi lawa hi le lamka sung mo mong hi khang tha ho ti taute midang tam ta zong sei dautin khang tha hoi ti pha le ji nei han lang cha nei han lang hi zong le akum hichilaya kuna kum som le ge da kuna kum som li ham kum som le ge da kuna som li le nga ham kha chan chu hi khang tha ho hi na to ding nei lo tam ta u me ti hi hichi data jing si azong chu phot chi the hi in hichi ti lo in zong private school hi lawa hi le ham private investment startup new cha cha ho in opening sa hi lawa le vacancy hin holding le application vacancy nga na la chun application hi som nga som gup lang hi zin hi cho chuna vet sa chu iphi hamiti hi le na to na a hi lawai le kine hol na langa hi mun hi vat momong na lai hi ti avet sa hi ji a chu tu ni la lam kai tha in nei hin nei ding ho u a hi lawa hi le hi chi hi ka de ve ti a I bol ding wa ka de them cha khat hin saying ka ting phat sau ta zong la be ding ka gung po in ama sapenin inei lo zong a hi po in PMKVY center inei vin PMKVY center ho hi mun izan ham khata umin e holam kasung Churchanpur sunga hin so ting le national skills NSDC hi lawa le Manipur NSDC nu e hin schemes is that tam ta hi e ho gam hung lung thading a hi lawa hi lam ka sung chu hung lung zo na hi wanga hung lung a hi wanga chu na ato ding dol bang ta atong thailo a hi lawa le tong lo example khat hin saying cutting recently hi example hi ami wang chu a hi lawa hi le organization to say hel hi zong le hen PMKVY center hin hin ki kole ati hin ki kolin ipisi hamatia hile amin to other card number ho zo si ki bang a hi in na certificate hung collect in atin aman kaki register lamjong ka he po in a hi lawai le hi chilai mu na hi ka umding a hi a hi lawai le hi chilai mu na hin kamin ka ki register in hi certificate hi ke chanding a lo ma hi ti jong ka het pha lo hi a hin la ipji a hi chu chang hamiti a hi center ho hin data ho hi hoi lai ham khada kuna ala azio wa hi chu fit in na bol ziwin chu na vet sa chu hi ale hoi ta ki monitor lo hi ti vet sa na hi in hi ta bang ho chu hoi te nei monitor pi uvin a hi lawa hi le e ho part azong hi khamei the hi a hi lawa hi le hoi langa kuna azong hi khamei the hi hin la hi skills development a hi lawa hi chi lampang hi ji a chu tu ni la stakeholder dang ho hi hin lang lam kai tha hi hin lang hi zong le hi ta bang ho chu ma ba na ta loading i de sa ji over chi zong chu in sei ki wa hin chu zo ting le candidate can had in free skill development for yes.
Yes, your time is up, but if you have to conclude,
I'll wind up in 1 minute. Free skills development for unemployed youth ti ho zong umin apat apai hi infrastructure ho hoi ta in tu lai ta is why say ta bang win I ha say to development hi in hi ta bang ho infrastructure ho zong develop thei ham a hi lawa hi le third party NGOs ho ham khat tun ga say ding in ke to na mun zinga zong kun mun gam na ta akuna Lamka town Churchanpur sunga hunguma ni khutha kilomi khat Churchanpur sunga hunga 10 days ahung phat ahung mana skills ahung zil tha kit di chu thilbe hi lo hi chi ji a chu amho center hilawle subdivisional center ham khat achun hilawai le hoilai ham khat achun amun mun achun hidi chun ki bol the hen lang hile hichita bang schemes ho chum the hen lang hile ding zong ka ta sani ni ham tia hichita bang ho zong chum the hen lang hile ti chu ka de sa khat a hin chu zo ting le chochampur college in even lamka college in even hi chu zo se hin skill development center hilawai hile department neu cha center neu cha khat the hen lang hile ti zong chu skills development lampanga khan to na inei the diu ham tin ka gelin zo ting le achaina dingin hitua hit koi government ha hi lo le lam kai tha ongwen lang hi zong le I find the need that this government hi lo wai le hi government ahin simding pen chun they should develop a forward thinking strategy to tackle the growing mismatch of skills supply and demand ti chu achaina ka hin sei no ma hi in phat ka hin la sau zi ne ngai da movin lang ka ki pa
ki pa waya Gracie point hoi tak nam gen khiat jakina tuina I panelist ni nei laya Ronika Vungwan kimto team nei zo omlaya amau in ahon gen diwai le gender to kisaya hiya ama sa pen na team nei zo isamdinga aman lamka ya gender issue to kisaya representative te na take up dinga point mo asak point bangza ya mungkin khile sini samai
Thank you, Lal. Yeah. Am I audible, Lal?
Yes.
Okay. I thank the organizers for creating this platform and giving me the opportunity to raise my voice in this platform. Without wasting much time, let me go straight to the issue that interests me. Taking forward to what our previous panelist had said, Puya has said, or he has raised one question. What is the kind of society we imagined in the future? And looking from gender perspectives, let me try to answer this question. I would like, to see our district, the district that I called my home, a safe space for women. So since I have so much points to cover, I have made a few notes. So I will just read out, those notes in case, because I'm so scared that I will miss out some of the points that I really wanted to raise. So in order to make a safe space for women, we first have to discuss what are the challenges that prohibits the district from achieving such a goal. I think there is this huge occurrence of sexual violence or harassment of women at workplaces, which I don't think is not a discussed topic in public or a part of a manifesto of our candidates. Taking this as an opportunity, I would like to draw the attention of our candidates on this pertinent issue. Because of the kind of patriarchal structure we live in, which leads to our keynote speaker has mentioned asymmetrical power, wherein power concentrates mostly on men, women of our town are vulnerable to facing sexual harassment by people in positions of power in workplaces, be it the employees themselves working in different institutions, or those general women seeking to get their office work or routine work done in offices or in institutions. Sexual harassment or violence can be defined differently, and Sexual Harassment of Women at Workplaces Prevention, Prohibition and Redressal Act defined, sexual harassment in a very broad manner, but I would want to stick to one definition where it says that sexual harassment can be in the form of asking sexual favors by the person in position of power in exchange for something within their authority to grant or withhold. Some international body has defined this particular term as sextortion, wherein, they are asked sexual favors in return for their work to get done. And since I want to use this platform as a kind of awareness regarding this issue, I must note that asking such sexual favors is also considered a kind of corruption under the new anti-corruption law of 2018. So you might be wondering, why is it important to address this issue for the development of society as a whole? So our keynote speaker has mentioned that there are certain schemes, provisions for the youth, right? So women also comes under youth. So some of the provisions that are available for women, if you look at it, sometimes women would not come forward to avail such schemes, or you would see them not participating enough to avail such schemes, probably because of the insecurity that they feel about the system and the deep mistrust they have towards the system due to such encounters with the people in power, who are mostly men. The such bottlenecks in the administrative functionings in different institutions curbs women from growing to their full potential who are already pursuing. And at the same time, it discourages other women who are yet to pursue to begin their journey of exploring their potentialities. So our keynote speaker has rightly pointed out that true development cannot be achieved without freedom from fear. And it is especially true in the context of women, when who are facing this kind of harassment. So if you leave behind women in this process of development, and at the same time, as rightly, I would like to quote Dr. Ambedkar here, and I quote, "I measure the progress of a community by the degree of progress women has achieved." So if you did not, if our system is not women friendly or is not safe for women, we will not be able to achieve true development in our society. So, and why is it discussed in this platform? Because I think the upcoming elected candidate has a lot of role in addressing these issues. And I think the candidate will find it as an important matter to dwell only if he considers this as a problem worth addressing and a problem worth their attention. And I would want to draw their attention why the candidate, because most of the candidates, considering that all the candidates are male, that it is a problem. I urge whoever is the elected representatives and also people in general to take this issue seriously and see it as a problem and develop mechanisms to tackle it accordingly. If you, I mean the elected representatives, wait till the time you experience it yourself to consider it as a problem, chances are that it will never be considered a problem because you will never experience it. Certain privileges that you hold, which is your gender, considering the fact that there are no female candidates, the positions that you hold, and the status will keep you safe and distant from this kind of unfortunate and unpleasant incidents. But just because it does not happen to you, or the chances of it happening to you or your acquaintances is zero, does not mean it is not happening. The reality is, in fact, quite the opposite. It is happening. We have to first acknowledge it, that it is a problem, then only we can come to certain solutions. However, we do not yet know whether it is prevalent or not. But we most certainly know that whatever is happening is mostly happening within, hidden from our view. At the same time, you, the elected, whoever will be elected, irrespective of your party or your party affiliations, must not wait until it becomes a prevalent or rampant incident to recognize it as a problem that needs urgent attention because of two reasons. One, we do not yet have robust mechanisms to collect such cases to arrive at a conclusion that it is a prevalent social issue. Second, there is a danger in normalizing such incidents if it occurs repeatedly unchecked and when they are not taken seriously by people of positions in power. So it is an appeal to whoever is going to be elected, irrespective of her power, to consider sexual harassment at workplace or any other place as a problem, because every woman, just as men, irrespective of their age, tribe, class, place of origin and settlement, be it the rural and the urban, deserves to be treated with respect and dignity. Let us not remain oblivious to the issue and prevent it from becoming a social norm, which we will call it. It's a normal thing that happens in our society. So I have a few recommendations for whoever will be elected. I have kind of list down as, yeah, I'll just 2 minutes, I'll wrap up. Yeah, I'll just wrap up in 2 minutes. Two goals that I have recommended for whoever is elected representative. One is long-term goal. During their term, they must try to develop a gender policy at the district level. And in order to achieve this gender policy, they can take up 3 short-term goals. One is constitute a committee dedicated especially for looking into these matters of this issue. And second is implement the Sexual Harassment of Women at Workplace Act 2013 by activating the local complaints committee at the district level in collaboration with the district administration. So this is something which is existing and which they can just have to activate. They don't have to, work on what would be the structures and everything. It's already existing. It just needs activation. And third, ensure a functional local complaints committee by extending necessary support, both human and finance, to the district administration. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Suzo, for sticking with the time and giving us such a wonderful point. I would like to go to the next panelist, Ronika. She will be speaking on the women participation in decision making, which is it is a very important issue. Ronika, if you are there, the time is here.
Thank you so much for giving me the time. So tunia ka topic dia hile participation of women in decision making, and especially in the purview of electoral politics. Sahi. If we look at, so I'll be speaking most of it in English because I have terminologies and vocabulary that is more well defined and that is more clear in English. So if we look at what makes development, or what makes human development, it is the equal participation and representation of all genders. And if we look at our town, or if we look at the state of Manipur, the sex ratio is 985, and that means almost half of the entire population of Manipur itself is contributed by women. And if we look at our state now, if we talk about the upcoming elections, which are supposed to happen in just 2 days, we have 60 constituencies in Manipur, out of which we have 261 contesting candidates out of these 60 constituencies. And out of these 261 contesting candidates, we have just 16 female candidates. Now, if we narrow it down and if we look at the areas that are dominated by tribes, or the scheduled tribes, what we call, we have about 20 constituencies, out of which we have just 4 female candidates. So if we convert this in terms of percent, it's just 4.3% when we look at the tribal areas. And if we look at the state as an average, female candidates contribute only 6.1%. So this is a stark this is a very grim and very sad reality, and this itself shows how, where we are as a state, where we are as a community in terms of equal representation, and what kind of development are we moving towards. So if we try to understand the reasons why, why there is such a sad reality, or such a huge gap in terms of participation, equal participation, we cannot simply say that women are debarred or women are not encouraged from participating. This election is open to everyone, irrespective of their gender. No one is no one is coerced into it. No one is forced to participate or not participate. But then what we have to question is also the kind of rules and the kind of realities that we have in the ground. if we go back to how we as a society, we assign roles, we assign responsibilities, be it at the level of our homes, be it at the level of our churches, or be it at the level of our community. We all know that we have the patriarchal system in place, and our customary laws itself is not necessarily very gender sensitive. It's not very inclusive in terms of equal participation. The Constitution, the 73rd Amendment of the Constitution of India enshrines that 33% of seats should be reserved for women in the Panchayati Raj or in the parliament. But then we, in tribal areas, we are governed under the 371C, which also gives us the liberty to define or to interpret these amendments, or to choose as tribal people to choose which methodology or which mechanism we would want to. And our customary laws being the most predominant and being the prevailing mechanism to govern tribal people, does not encourage for the participation, or does not feel the need that we should have reservation of women, and hence we do not have reservation of seats for women in the autonomous district council, or even in the upcoming assembly elections. So we are not saying that reservation is going to be the only solution that would address this problem, but then it definitely is one major step, one structural change that can bring about this the change that we would want to, that can encourage for equal participation. So if we look at, if we try to address the issue of participation of women in the electoral politics itself, one major challenge is also access to resources or control and ownership over resources. It's a fact that that elections are very resource intensive, very capital intensive, whether it's human resource or other forms of resources. And if we look at the kind of community setting that we are in, women do not have access, control, or ownership over resources, movable or immovable, and they are not granted the rights or the authority to these resources, because we have customary laws in place which does not allow women to own lands or property. So if women do not have access to these resources, then she does not have the required support system that would encourage her to take part in elections. And elections itself is already a risk. Being a candidate does not guarantee your winning and your chances that you would be able to recover or reclaim the resources that you have put at stake. So I think these are some of the major constraints that hinders women from participation. And if we look at our community, our family council, what we call Indongta itself, women are generally given only complementary roles rather than roles of authority, or roles that are of decision making. So even if in the church we have separate committees, we have separate groups for women, it's never the committees between men and women are hardly intersecting. So why can't we have more women? Why can't we have equal participation of women, whether it's in the church level? Why can't we have women making decisions on behalf of the family, whether it's in our community level or even in our politics itself? So I have just noted down some points as a form of recommendation that we would like to, as a young person, as a young woman of the community. There are some points that I've just jotted down that can be addressed to our leaders or whoever will be elected for the upcoming elections. One could be that leaders can influence parties, the political parties, to nominate for more to nominate women, the participation of women in their political parties. If they can use their powers to influence, then definitely if there's a seat that is reserved for women itself, although it can be a top-down approach, it can definitely bring about a great impact. Another could be that leaders can take an active role in creating a synergy between customary beliefs or customary practices and the constitutional laws and regulations that we have. So we don't necessarily always have to choose either this or that. it's also possible, like Dr. Puya has said, in the beginning, it's not always one or the other. There's always a possibility of working things. There's always a possibility of bringing out the best of, both sorts of practices. Then as Gracie has put up regarding, skill development and the need for, imparting skills, and the need and in making these skills more relevant to the social realities. One suggestion in this regard could be that instead of, our leaders can start focusing on imparting skills when it comes to skill development, imparting skills that do not always stick to the mainstream stereotypical skills that women are expected to have. The expected roles that women are supposed to have are skills that concerns, cooking, nurturing roles, or other similar, forms of skills. So it's about time we change this narrative. So we should also start, encouraging women, or start building up institutions or making structural changes so that women can also learn skills, or so that women can also acquire skills that any other human can possibly acquire. Then the last point is encourage and strengthens, like I said, encourage and strengthen schemes that encourages, or that promotes equal participation of women. Thank you.
With this, we are done with all the panelists, but considering the limitation of time that we have given to each one of the panelists, I must express that I feel sorry for the panelists to give you such a very limited time. Considering this limitation of the time, I would like to open a very short time for another to finish up some of the important points which are missing in this discussion. For this, I would like to call Dr. Puya. He has set out a very broad concept of the political ideas and the political imagination that our society must imbibe in the future, as we have to survive politically in this context. So I would like to request Dr. Puya again to somehow resume some of the important thoughts that you have laid out, and especially on the three key leaders and the lesson that you are willing to draw from these three key thinkers of the political in their political ideas. Dr. Puya, if you are available.
Okay. Yes.
I'm sorry to give you very little of time. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you again. In Mizo, we have something like tusoi toy. So generally, it's very rare that people stick to the time, because we often tend to go, beyond what is stipulated. So that is why we often stress, people to, stick to what we call tusoi toy. Anyway, given that I'm, offered this opportunity again, so to break down what I intend to say on 3 points, and after listening to such a rich and insightful presentation or speech from my co-panelists. So one is that I talk about the political idea. So my point was that how can political ideas or our political imagination bring about social cultural reform in our society? And I think this is deeply interconnected with what Zote and Monica and other co-panelists have talked about. How can our political ideas, political imagination shape or bring about social cultural reform in our society? Second is how can we engage with universal values of equality? How can we engage with universal values of promoting education, promoting good governance? So these are not something which are only specific to Lamka or Manipur, but which are something, you know, which has a universal appeal. So the point before us is, you know, rightly being, you know, shared by Denis, you know, and others, that how can we bring, you know, universal ideas of equality, gender equality? How can we bring about and talk about, execute, you know, universal ideas of sustainable, you know, this sustainable development goals, if I get it correctly, SDGs, you know, into our town. The third point is, which I stressed in my earlier talk, was how can we also imagine, you know, a future where we talk about and we embrace, you know, the diversity, we embrace the pluricultural space that we habit, you know, in Churchanpur, because Churchanpur is a home of a multitude of communities speaking and belonging, you know, to different tribe, clan, subgroups. So the point is, because this is election time, I think the question is, by the power non gain vote kiang bang basis a kia bele pung basis a kia here a gele organization the omna I bele pung organization ina yaite vote honchi sunga hitia narrow identity basis vote ikiak to zera le chu a cause a implication pa omgi ge hi ka hijabang diverse region, diverse space omi hi na mo identity bana le bangzina election hong bangzina political institution te bangzina evolve hey de dunia can concrete but we don't have to always confine ourselves to narrow identity and politics, but we can also, you know, think about, you know, casting, you know, our vote or engaging in politics beyond, you know, our identity or beyond our political projects, which are very much rooted in our identities. Thank you so much again. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pui, for sharing such important point. And we are very sorry that we are almost missing out this one important piece of point that we needed at this point of time. Is there, from other panels, is there anyone who would like to finish one or two points that you really feel like important, which you have missed in the main time allotted to you? Anyone? Otherwise, I'll be going to the next. I hope everyone have shared almost all the points that you have prepared yourself. Again, I really thanks the panelists for bringing up such important points at this important juncture that we are standing. And now, would like to open for a brief discussion if there are any question from the audience and even from the panelists, which you know, are very pertinent to this, what we really want as a youth, that our representatives should take up as a candidate, and when they are elected, those important points which you think are missing or you think it should be addressed. If you have any point further on that, I'll open 1 minute for this. If anyone have from the audience and even the panelists and the host also. I hope it is sufficient point that we have raised. It is a very difficult task for me from my side. When I look at my qualification to be a moderator of this such diverse, young, talented, and well-educated youth, to take into consideration of all of their thoughts and to put them into a frame where we can put up as a sort of manifesto or a point which can be, you know, put out as a demand or a concern of the youth of the Southern Churachandpur, which I think to me, I have a very limited knowledge or engagement in most of the area that we are sharing in. Nevertheless, I accepted this role, not because I think I'm qualified, but it is because I think it is very important to raise our voice as a youth and to make it hard and to make it rich to those of the intending representative of the Manipur Assembly. Therefore, I took up this task. Nevertheless, how hard it is, how difficult it is. And I ask your forgiveness to all the panelists, to the audience, because the moderator is very inexperienced in conducting this. They kon gen uta hile panelist le host te ke kon gen uta hile yai bang role ding ina chitna bang ma ne ki ma le hang ne ki ma leng leng poi mo ma hi na ziakina yai bang role kon la ka hi chi kon gen ma sa no te tunga chilo na tampi na thugen te hoi tampi ma le wai te ting ting gom khom le ham khom thaya I hoi taka on pe khet hi dinga siam na nei lo ka hi ziakin leng poi ka sa son sona uchi kom kala I tunia iki ho nau tampi ti appoint na I ken ka hon sim khesung non ke dinga himale tunia iki ho na teu pen I yai foramin atuble angim ma bang na mi pi thei dinga the khia ta ngom dinga hi chi khanna kon gen ma sakhi hen lan I a moderator ka hi na I appoint hun khang na dan na ke hun khang dan na yai panelist discussion hun khang na dan na point mang sa yam khat gen be ut ka hon ne ya tu tunga I point gen te hoi pp ama sa pen na dr pui na yai I political culture I yam political ideas ngai tu na kichian tak bang chibang society bang chibang khovela ita inaute ai kele itwala te hong kheding yam amaute politics in kwading ai kele aten na khovelwa omding danu bangchi bang bo sakding hiyam bo theding hiyam chi ngai to na kichian tak nei poimwa hi chi hon gen ke leng thupi ka sama ma tulalai I din munu I society din munu huchi bang ngai to na piak sang na tam 5-year terms ngai to na lel ado chi ngai to na am ziakina hi ngai to na khathupi ka sama ma wai zakina I leaders ten le ngai to na thuk zo hon pia hen lan I society a nume na pangte twilight dia dinga kum nga chawilo kum soma sim yon kho sak to na dinga peace and harmony chi am akilem to na om the na dinga point poimo tampi hon gen khiate yai I diversity chi dama nam tom teng khom hi na white bang chi bang bitaka teng khom te ding yam chi ngai to na heu tu ten hon nei phat ma poimo hi chi a first point aki gen ke lekon gen be ut zual hi helan uchilawa thu tampi igena education bang ngai kho kwai ma right to education nei himale hanga singtanga schoolom no lo school puom no lo schoolom le leng school a teacher diom lo ja ka lamka zangen kiden na lamka zang na to maleng free and compulsory education ichi laya private school tia ta te nei lo sa sani thakilo to ma kai bang zia hiam chi te wai te kha Denis in hon gena ngai kho kwai mama yai te pin bang chi banga atak taka free and compulsory education why na to pa hi le school kai ke no na quality education to private ita ten private school siam na azil bang government school ling zil thei thamai why bang chi banga I thunei tu tem mi people ai ten hon sem so ding u hiam hon sem chi kha twilight te lungul mama khat leng a hinona bana Joshua khautin hon gen thupi le hoi ka sak mama kha material progress ichidama individualistic material progress culture society khata yomwa mimal hau nak ki khang ma again tenan car bang ai kele building in bang khang hul mu thia khang himale ilampi te i khosak na te ngai to na te ki hek lo human progress and development lampa ki ken yam ma wai bang heu tu te na bang chi banga i yai isu i address the di ya chi khang ngai ko kwai hi chi kon gen hian la i point teng avekina kon i repeat ke dinga poimo thei ma i khotang le numei i bit na bang leng poimo pen ma hi a i khotanga nak pi takina numei na pang bit lo i numei na pang te swalu yaom chianga indong tawa ki holem na nak pi taka om numei na pang swalu yam ki zamun ma himal le a case tak pen thunei tu tak dan to igam dani chidama state dan to ki to ka suk lenga omlo indong tawa ki holem ma hi chiang na sum nei zo tanaw nei zo a hau zo te e wa zo na gam ong hinon uchi bang kom kala numei te bang chima binding hiam chia u thi min hon gen kha lung khoi wai ma wai bana numei le thunei nai chidiama e vai hom na a numei te panmun chia idin muna chiang ma ronikai hon gen na uchi bang yai din muna ding hi na makai ten bang chi bang numei khang thak tia dinga panmun scheme om sa te bang chi bang transparent taka hon implement he ding hiam ai kele a omlo e lak to ki context to ki tuak bol be thei bang om di hiam chi te kha hon ngai to leu yai again point te ting pen ken kon repeat pen boring point hon hi dinga ina i kon gen non ke dinga hi chi bang discussion nei ngei lo nei tam lo hi na tun ta ka i discussion man pha le hoi ka sama ma a panelist hon pai khom ten nang ai to na thu pen te non pya ko hi dung zuina point kilom tak hoi tak non pya kya teu jakin ki pa thu kon gena ki pa thu gen kom le hi wai bana i thu gen te hon zul kom leng ka hi a chinglo chik takina kon comment bel bwala hi tan ke hun kon a hon hi dinga abana i huni nei lai te i hoste ke i pe hi hi ulal hello nang hun di dani be
ki pau me he tunita ki unman patak i zangu ki dinga i lamka youth manifesto ki hi kumpaita 2021 kum top lama hi lamka young leader summit si saya wai to ki saya hi yai to ki sai youth te dreams le aspiration te hi tebula lui hia ka wai kha kum thak 2022 kha assembly election hi to youth te voice kha candidate tom te la ka hi theisa ka amau le yai te kha ken attention ong piak diu chi kha dream a kin ilaina 2021 kum top lamina lamka young leaders forum i hwaljin tuana tom ma kin izia kin ki sai thelo na ki oma wai zia ka kha tu ni panel discussion phang ki sai hi wai hi ong nong na thei sia mole ong nget nau hi hian la second hinga number ni na kong gen no hi lamka town hall talks ki chi hi monthly na kum beisa 2021 sungina na ki sai to wa talks episode 7 hiam khat i cover hinwa tu ni na 2022 adia ma sapien a hi manina tunia program ang ki hel panelist te kha kun tom chik sungang ki chia la hiya within a very short notice you all agreed to come and speak and share your ideas and dreams on behalf of Lamka young people. We appreciate and we thank all of you and we will continue to engage with all of you in the days to come. Si hi kongchial na pu hi hian la wai bana hi Lamka young leaders forum teni hi Lamka town hall talks. It's a virtual platform but we will be utilizing it to voice the concerns of young people in our town in specific. But when we say Lamka, it's not only about the geographic Lamka, but it's more about representing the concerns and voices of the outer Manipur young people. chi hi athakina I ana he thakun la lamka chi pen hi lamka specific geographic to ki meg mat hetwan la wina lamka kha it's one of our identity chi manang ong ki janga hi chi hi athak thakin ni thei dinga wai bana tu nia ya denanggen tak banguna lallina onggen bangena tu ni taka thu ki gen khia te whatever we have put forth we have tabled tonight will be produced in the form of written text, and we will try our best that this content are circulated and made accessible to the public and to all the candidates, intending candidates, as well as to all the voters through our local dailies. Chi hi mabanal sep ya ngim te laka khatahia tunita ka thukigen khiate asip sipina hi keita zongena lak tom bek tom kimina ongki gel khedinga hi te hi local dailies te newspaper tuam pau tuam lam kamuna kiswa khetele mun tuama tunina ilakang khel adia gena uhezang saikul kangpokki district apan ong tel amau ten len neu hi content te hi ana reproduce te wa local newspaper ti ana publish sakte le hi amau le ingen nai ngal lenga yai teng hi ken saulo konggen the yen la tunita kang pai khom teng ni pi te audience te tu hun tan ang tel te wai bana panelist te amin un na kong lo vek ke dinga un tom chik chunga hi chebanga hi chial na hi nong manu nong sexual sia ko na ki pa tu konggen wa ma bana le in depth discussion topic by topic. We will be picking up we will pick them up in the days to come, and we will need your assistance and support. Chi hi kong request of hiền la yai tan hi tunita ka programa zo hi thei hiền la Lamka town hall talks episode giatna mo tunita hi the 8th episode tunita ka hi closing kaitan azo de hi ki pawame